What's up, people? I want to share a few differences from living in Austria and living in New Zealand, because I've been living in Austria now for 2 years. I wanted to share what it's like living in this country and what it's like in Europe and my opinion on it all. So I'm just sitting outside here. So one of the first things that I noticed when I came here was the weird windows that they have. They have like the setting where you can rotate it and then pull it, so it's like, I think the word they use is kipped the window, so it's like partly open, which makes total sense. I don't understand why the whole world doesn't have this, but it's such a good feature, so that's one thing. So check this out as an example, right? You have the door, and then it's shut, and then you can go like this, and then open it. How great's that? And you get a bit of air coming through here. And you go like this, and then you can open like that. I'm happy about that. In Austria, they only indicate when you leave the roundabout. Doesn't make sense to me. I think when you go, so in New Zealand you enter a roundabout, and if you're turning left or right, then you indicate left or right when you enter the roundabout. But in Austria, you just indicate out when you leave. One thing I've realized is that Austrian people don't like small talk. Like, it's super common in New Zealand and it's not at all common here, which it feels a bit rude, but I think it's just the way that they are. Instantly when I came here and I got a phone, I realized how cheap the data is. Like, I think I have like 15 gigabytes of data and I pay like 10 euros a month or something. But in New Zealand you pay like $30 for, I don't know, 2 gigabytes maybe. But it's a crazy difference. Also, when you go to a restaurant in Austria or a cafe, sometimes in cafe you don't get free water. Like in New Zealand, you go to a restaurant, you get free water on the table. You say, hey, can I get a bottle of water? And then the waiter just brings a bottle out. In Austria, you have to pay, and they ask you, do you want sparkling water or still water? Also with restaurants, you always pay at the end. And it was like, when I came here, I went to a cafe and I walked up to the front to order, and she was like, why are you here? She's like, go sit down. And then I went and sat down, and then she comes and she takes my order, and then like I ordered a cappuccino, and then the cappuccino comes out, and then I wanted to pay, so I got up and walked back to the front desk, and she's like, what do you want? I was like, I just want to pay. And she's like, okay, go sit down. And then I went back and sat down, and then she came to me and paid. It's weird, because in New Zealand, like, you only pay at the end usually in restaurants. When I arrived here, you're allowed to smoke inside, indoors. So all of the nightclubs and the bars were just filled with smoke. But now there's a new law in 2019 where you can't smoke inside, but they still smoke so much in Austria, so much cigarettes, and it's like 5 euros for a pack of cigarettes. And back home, it's not, like, I think it's like $26 for a packet of cigarettes or something. And no one smokes. If you smoke in New Zealand, like, a lot of young people just use the roll cigarettes, but it's way more common for people to smoke in Austria. Also, fact, the word, like the slang word for cigarettes in New Zealand is dari, and then in Austria, the slang word they say like chig. It's like mogst du a chig? Like, do you want a dari? Do you want a cigarette? Another thing, if you're biking on the roads here, you don't have to wear a helmet. But back, like in New Zealand, if you bike without a helmet, the police will stop you. On Sundays, the shops, like the supermarkets, are shut, which is so frustrating if you don't have any groceries, because it means you have to buy food. And back home, the supermarkets are open, like some are open 24/7, like even on Sunday. I find in winter here, people like over exaggerate when it's cold. Like, maybe it's like 0 degrees or like -2 or something, and everyone just literally covers himself with every kind of piece of clothing you can imagine. And when I, like, for example, when I go to my girlfriend's parents' place and I don't have a jacket and I'm not cold, they'll think that I'm like crazy for not wearing a jacket. I feel like they're over exaggerated. If you do anything wrong in Austria, you're most likely going to get a fine or get told off. They're pretty strict with like following the rules here. And back home in New Zealand, I was just so used to doing things knowing that if you did get in trouble for something, then the police would usually be like, oh, okay, just don't do it again, or like whatever. And the police here are so unpredictable. You can just get in trouble for anything. Like even one time I walked into the supermarket here, and my shoes were like squeaking, and the lady like told me to be quiet. It's like, please. She's like, she was like, don't make that noise. It's annoying. Also, on the topic of supermarkets, they're way smaller. They have lots of varieties of supermarkets, and they're all like really small. But back home in New Zealand, it's like a big warehouse kind of vibe with like everything you can imagine. And there's maybe less of them, but they've got everything. So I don't know. I kind of prefer the bigger ones because there's nothing worse than going to like all the way to a supermarket and they don't have what you want, and then you have to go to another one. One absolute major difference, probably the biggest difference, is beer. Like beer in New Zealand, they're always in 330ml bottles, mostly, in 330 milliliter bottles. And over here they're always in half a liter bottles, and they're cheaper, and you can basically buy beer everywhere. Like you can buy beer at McDonald's, you can buy beer at like the unis and the vending machines for like, it's like €1 for a beer, and the water was like €1.50. So I don't know, beer's just like, everyone just drinks beer, but the beer as well, I think personally, is like the best in the world as well. So it's cheap, it's more quantity, and it's tasty as, I find. Here we go. But the beers come like this, right? Come in a big kiste, which I guess is crate in English. So that is what an Austrian beer's like. One really annoying thing that I still, every night when I go to sleep, still happens. We have to sleep with, like, so like imagine a queen bed. Every queen bed has 2 duvets, and I don't understand why. If there's one person sleeping, sure, you can have 1 duvet. But if there's 2 people sleeping, there's 2 duvets, so you kind of have your own blanket, and it doesn't make sense because you lose yours, so you take the other person's, and then they lose theirs, so they take yours, and it's just like ruins the night's sleep, in my opinion. Anyway, that was my quick bullets of differences between New Zealand and Austria. Cheers.